This is Stephen McCue reporting for Unique Dyslexic Eye Radio.
Hello, this is Stephen McCue here, bringing you episode 4, season 2 of Unique Dyslexic Eye. Before I start the podcast, I just want to bring some news. I think it's on the 2nd of September, we get our Prestige Award, 2021-22 Prestige Award for being the best dyslexia support organisation in Scotland, something I'm very proud of. Now, I'm not sure how important it is the award is, but it's an award and it's always good to get an award. I don't know who put us forward for it, but we actually managed to attain it. All I do know is that somebody puts your name forward and they do a lot of research on the organisation, and then they come to a decision on which organisation to award the award to. So that's on September the 2nd. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to go along. It's in Edinburgh, which is a bit of a ways away. It's going to be a missed photo opportunity. There's also a question of having a budget for it, and then there's all the COVID thing going on. I mean, I know I've had my 2 COVID jabs, but I think we can still carry COVID, even though we've had the COVID jags. And so, I don't want to bring it home to my family at all, or my friends. So I think it's a little bit about safety. Still, I'd rather miss the photo opportunity than risk doing that. It's just the way it is. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about how I embrace being dyslexic and why I embrace being dyslexic. Here we go again. Someone telling me I'm dyslexic and therefore something is not functioning properly because my brain is broken. Heavy sigh. Let's wheel out the old medical model of dyslexia again. Let's focus on the negative model that says dyslexia is about deficits, disorder and discrepancy. Let's talk about a medical model of dyslexia that's got the dyslexic community exactly nowhere for decades. Let's talk about a medical model of dyslexia that shackles us to a negative stereotype that basically boils down to this. Dyslexics and dyslexia is a problem, and it's a problem that needs to be fixed. It doesn't mention the fact that our society is dyslexia unfriendly. It doesn't mention that our education system lets down dyslexics, fails dyslexics. It just says that we are the problem. Now, I find this morally wrong. We just cannot be a problem. We just cannot be the source of the problem here, if there is a problem. Now, this idea that dyslexia is there to be fixed, that somehow or other we are broken, that somehow or other we are to blame for being dyslexic, is just wrong. It's just unjust. And I don't know about all you other dyslexics out there, but I find things that are unjust really annoying. I think many dyslexics find justice has a very high importance in their lives. I think it might be something to do with our empathy. I think it might be to do with our emotional intelligence. But I also think it's because so many of us face so much injustice in our lives. It just irks me tremendously. I've also just read something online. I'm not going to say what organisation or anything like that. I'm just going to say it says that if we dyslexics go through one particular program, 80% of the dyslexic, and I'm going to put my little bunny fingers to quote this, the dyslexic problems disappear. Ha ha! Dyslexic problems disappear. Like magic, like Samantha from Bewitched, waggling her nose, and the funny little music goes, did, and everything's okay. That is crazy, in my opinion, and I can't see how that has any basis in reality at all. Again, we're down to this idea that dyslexics are a problem, that dyslexics need to be fixed, and I think it's absolutely crazy. What I would like to see to help dyslexics succeed in school is teacher training, including training on ways to support dyslexic learners in an inclusive learning environment in the future. That's what I want. Even teachers say that that's what they want. I think around 75% of teachers say they don't know enough about dyslexia to work with the students that they've got in their classrooms. I think that is absolutely crazy. It's an injustice. Again, it's one of the reasons there's a saying I have. It gets my goat. It really riles me up. No end at all. And is this going to happen sometime in the future? Nope. Not on your Nelly, is it? Not until we change the narrative. We have to move away from this idea that the medical model of dyslexia is a true representation of the dyslexic community, and that dyslexia is about deficits, disorder and discrepancy. We have to move away from that. And I'm going to go on about social enterprise, and I'm going to go on about social model of dyslexia. We need a different way to deal with it. So I'm going to go on about this 80% of dyslexics. The problems disappear. So we go through this. We are no longer dyslexics. Or is it that we are still dyslexic or somehow cured of those pesky dyslexic problems? I'm not saying dyslexic isn't a problem. I'm not saying dyslexic can be hell for all of us. But lots of the reasons why it is hell for so many of us is because our dyslexia is because our education system is just dyslexia unfriendly. Society is dyslexia unfriendly. It doesn't understand us. It doesn't want to understand us. We must change the narrative. From my perspective, dyslexia is a very important part of me because it enables me to do very many positive things. In my life, I've been a professional musician, an inclusion and dyslexia specialist, a social entrepreneur, a podcaster, a broadcaster. I've done so many positive things that I think dyslexia and dyslexia has been an integral part of that. Being dyslexic gives me empathy, emotional intelligence, great problem solving skills. It gives me that sense of injustice that makes me want to fight injustice whenever I see it. Things that I don't think I would ever have done had I not been dyslexic, or should I say if I had not been assessed as being dyslexic. Here's another thing that society needs to do. Every school child who is suspected of, or shows signs that they may be dyslexic must be given a dyslexia assessment. Because without a dyslexia assessment, how do we overcome the barriers that there are in society? How do we start to learn about ourselves as learners, as people, if we don't know that we're dyslexic? We're not going to do that, are we? From my perspective, once we're assessed, we can start developing a dyslexia learning toolbox. And within that dyslexia learning toolbox, we can start to put the tools in that we need to do the things that we need to do at school, at work, in our lives. And once we can do that, we can function at the same level as non-dyslexics, because what we're doing is removing the barriers of society. One of the biggest barriers of getting a job for many dyslexics is completing application forms that in the main are dyslexia unfriendly. I personally can't fill out by hand an application form. I personally can't fill out an application form by hand. I never have been able to. Without access to the computer keyboard, which was the one biggest piece of assistive technology, it's assistive for just for dyslexics, it's assistive for everybody. So I think, what I'm going to say is that we must be providing dyslexia assessments to all our kids at school. Especially when you think about only 19% of dyslexic adults were assessed at school. That means 81% of dyslexic adults out there they may have been assessed at university, but a huge number of dyslexics are out and about there in the real world who have no idea that they might be dyslexic. And what does that say for the idea that only 10% of the population in the UK are dyslexic? That calls that kind of percentage thing into question. I'm going to carry on about the social model of dyslexia because I believe that dyslexia is a difference that represents diversity within humanity, and that without that diversity we wouldn't have been successful as we have been with progress. Okay, how much art, how much science, how much philosophy, how much chemistry would have been lost if it not for the dyslexic brain and the way the dyslexic brain works? Now, I'm not saying the dyslexic brain is broken. I'm not saying the dyslexic brain is perfect, but what I am saying is it's just different. And that difference needs to be recognised. It doesn't need our education system to beat us down in terms of our education, in terms of learning, because it doesn't understand how that brain works. It needs to know how it understands how the brain works. Teachers need to know more about dyslexia so that they can work with dyslexia in the classroom, and so that we can free ourselves from this cycle, never-ending cycle of dyslexic kid goes to school, dyslexic kid struggles at school, dyslexic kids leave school without achieving according to their abilities, and that has an effect on their mental health, on their self-esteem, on their self-confidence, and this can be lifelong. It's just crazy, absolutely crazy. When I think dyslexia, I say vive la différence. I think we are just different. We are just part of diversity. We need society to recognise that. Many of us need to recognise it ourselves. I'm going to finally just say that I don't suffer with dyslexia. I embrace it for what it gives me. But what I do suffer with is an education system that still fails the vast majority of dyslexic kids at school. It's not good enough. We must change the narrative. We must try and move it forward. What do you think? Are you happy with the medical model of dyslexia that talks about deficit, disorder and discrepancy? Or would be more happy with the idea of neurodiversity, of Dyslexia is a difference that reflects diversity. What do you think? How do you think we should we carry on doing it the way we've been doing it for the last 50, 60, 70 years, which has basically devastated, I would say it's devastated the lives of so many dyslexics? Or are we going to try and change it to a different way, using a different kind of thought process to try and enable? Medical model disables, social model enables. What would you say about that? Come back to me. This is Steve McCue for Unique Dyslexic Eye. Finally, just a little bit of a shout out. If you have something to say, send me a message, a voice message, and I will put it on my show. It doesn't have to support what I'm saying, it can be against what I'm saying. I'm interested in what your feelings are, and I will include it in my show. Okay, so I think that's enough for today. Thanks very much for listening. As I've said before, this is Steve McCue for Unique Dyslexic Eye. Peace, love and grooveness to everybody, and be seeing you on my next vlog pretty soon. Probably next week. I'm thinking about doing one on Facebook. Okay, thanks very much. Bye.
This is Stephen McCue reporting for Unique Dyslexic Eye Radio.